thank you for visiting this room number 2. It's not a kind of developer topic, but we will see what's going to happen with it. So, okay. My name is Stas, and everything else is not very important. You can read slides afterwards. So this is the link for the slide deck. And the session built like a, I don't know, library, like a set of resources. So each of the slides contains reference for the GitHub and other tooling that I will be sharing. So if you will download the slide deck, you will get a lot of QR codes through the slides. And you can do the homework, actually, because it's impossible to cover everything in the deep details. But you will have a reference with all the links and all the needed information. So this talk is about GitOps concept, tooling for GitOps Argo, comparison, a bit of GitSecOps, and summary where it is going now. But first, I want to meet you and know more about you. Who is developer here? Okay, awesome. DevOps engineers, maybe? Okay, okay. I will have some jokes about DevOps engineers. It's a kind of interesting topic. Any like architects, tech leads, serious people? Cool, cool. So, and a lot of full stack engineers. So DevOps, development, doesn't matter. Quick question, Microsoft stack, .NET, Azure? Okay, thank you. AWS? Okay. So the reason for this exercise, so I will have more jokes about AWS than Azure to accommodate this talk towards audience. So with this being said, let's go. So this is the like a basics and overall slide. There is a now we have in tech a lot of fancy words. So it's DevOps, GitOps, GitSecOps, GitDevSecOps, platform engineering, ScriptOps, ClickOps, and whatever. And so we're moving gradually from left to right. And if I would summarize what is GitOps really are, it's just Git versioning for the infrastructure and trying to get control over what operations doing. And also have a git blame command on changes from the infrastructure. So you can always blame them for something not working, because until the GitOps term invention, something was under version control, but something is not. And GitOps tooling actually solving problem with mess in operations with automatically applying state from your Git repository in just 2 terms. But still, even with GitOps, it's a lot of manual clicking, a lot of manual stuff. And unfortunately, we're trying to get through the, this one, through the imperative and declarative. So few words. Declarative is that you have a state somewhere, and the state constantly applying to the infrastructure in cloud. And imperative if you run in console command, bash script, some CLI, and etc. Most of the problems now we have because of the ClickOps on the right side. ClickOps, it's when you log in into the portal or kubectl command line and trying to apply some changes. This is the short overview, and we're starting with GitOps. So GitOps is just a part of the DevOps, unfortunately, and it's only for Kubernetes. There is the impression that everything is Kubernetes now, but it's not true. And it's really not true. And there are situations when GitOps is not applicable at all, like IoT and other stuff. You don't have Kubernetes there, so you don't have a fancy tooling, and you need to do this kind of semi-manual way, but you can use principles from GitOps manifest to work with your infrastructure, with everything. But it will be just without tooling. Then it's a opinionated approach, because you cannot do everything with the GitOps tools, because you still need separate infrastructure as code. And when you start in your GitOps journey with Argo or Flux, you need to set up them first. And you do this imperative way with command line. A lot of people telling me that Yeah, we started with infrastructure as code with Terraform. We deployed first Argo deployment with Terraform, but I'm not really believe them because I've seen many times that some initial scripts that people applying through the imperative way and then starting using Argo or Flux in automated GitOps way. This Argo and Flux, they consist of many other open source tools, and this also bring issues and complexity. And the more you're using GitOps tools for Kubernetes, the more extra tools you will need. So it's like a rabbit hole. You're starting with like, oh, okay, I have Argo CD only for continuous deployment. But then you're thinking, I have continuous integration on Azure DevOps, on GitHub Actions. Maybe I should move everything together to Argo. And then you start adding more and more tools. Here is the two references. This reference is for GitOps Bridge. It's a repository of quick starts and best patterns for the GitOps to start with Argo CD and Flux. And we're moving forward. So propose it's to have this immutability firewall between your infrastructure changes, so nothing gets applied in manual way, and everything is automated. This also allows us to kind of try to tackle a configuration drift problem. Configuration drift is that changes on your production Kubernetes is different. Configuration of your production Kubernetes is different from what described in the Git repository. And while all the tools promising automated fixing of this configuration drift, this might not happen because there are situations when these tools cannot resolve this. And there is a concept of pull and push. I will cover it soon. And another problem that actually GitOps solved for me, it's a security problem. Because if you have a push approach, you need to always fetch latest certificates to your pipelines, latest secrets, and have everything secured in the proper way, but from the CI/CD. Now, if you have a pull, nothing can connect externally to your cluster, and so you're controlling all the secrets and security through your cluster inside. And so only your cluster can connect to something outside. So it's like less damaging approach. And pull versus push. So actually, it's quite good Hollywood topic, and I'm usually trying to say everyone, use only pull. Pull is the only way, and push approach is like a Stone Age, and this is for developers that is using COBOL mainframe. But actually, all the pull, it's actually the same push. It's just the hooks. After the hook, you will have a push from your tooling. So with pull, you have a lot of traffic. You have better security controls. You have automated policies that can be applied not to one cluster, because if you have one or two clusters for your applications, it's not a problem. The problem starts to rise if you have geo-distributed app in different regions and a lot of clusters or a complex application setup. And there is no way out. There is no way out and no alternative to the pool. And there is you can set up Argo CD and Flux for push, actually. It's doable, but it's actually, you're getting as a result a classic DevOps. And do you need Argo CD or Flux if you're using push? Maybe if you have a complex setups, but otherwise it's not that needed and it can be complicated. And with push, yeah, you have ability to do a lot of manual stuff, but we will get to this. So developer perspective. GitOps is really good for developers because it's allowing them to write infrastructure and actually understand what is going on with application in Kubernetes. So the concept of GitOps is when the most of the setups I worked with, this is the point, because I'm explaining my own opinion, my own perspective. So from my perspective, if team writing their own infrastructure for their namespace and application, it's really good because they're responsible for this, and they're responsible for make it happen and make it work. And then infrastructure team just reviewing this pull requests. So the Helm charts that team implemented or Kubernetes manifests, they are of good quality and they will be working nicely. And there is some kind of unit testing or dry runs to apply them without conflicts, but we will get there. Changes outside the Git will happen anyway. If someone telling you that GitOps will solve this problem, you will still need command line. You will still have network issues because everything works in GitOps and networking and application only until moment when something happened with your network protocols, with peering, with network gateways, and etc. And if something happened with network, GitOps and Argo and Flux will not help you in any way. You would need to log into your command line to bash, to kubectl, and you need to solve everything manually. So when someone trying to advertise you that everything works perfectly, it's not like full truth. And another problem that's solving with developers is that it's usually versioning of software for the applications, but no versioning of infrastructure code. And so it's usually resulting in the mismatch between configuration on the cluster and configuration of your application. And if you need to align this, GitOps is a perfect approach to do this. And there are a lot of other issues with rollbacks, roll forward, revert, and database migrations. That is GitOps not really covering, and you need to figure out this for yourself. In terms if you have breaking changes and etc., will you be able to properly revert your infrastructure changes? Probably not. Maybe yes, maybe not. So you need to test this carefully and do not also believe any automated tools like Flyway and etc. Responsibilities. So this is quite easy. So operations responsible for environment, cluster, configuration, policies to solve configuration issues, patching containers, getting new and fancy tooling, and observability, so you only plugging in your application to the particular endpoint to stream logs. And operations also responsible for starting conflicts with dev team, because it's always dev team that is done something bad and not infrastructure. And the vice versa, because if something doesn't work from your application, it's infrastructure guys, unfortunately, or fortunately. So conflict is a part of the GitOps also. Regarding dev team, application configuration, manifest, Helm charts, customize. I will cover more terms down below, down the line. And application promotion between environments. Who have issues with complex environments set up, and you need to promote tested version to the next environment. But you need to promote first network configuration, then you need to promote backend application with database, then you need to apply changes for the web UI and etc. And you need to do this in order, in properly order, because otherwise it will not work. So it will be your responsibility as developer to configure a Flux or Argo CD to have a proper propagation between environment. Let's start with Argo CD. So Argo CD have a quite big ecosystem, and most of the ecosystem, it's kind of internal tools of Argo. So Argo CD obviously is just for continuous deployment, but you getting out of the box a lot of features like UI, observability, ability to collect logs, and ability to do some manual interventions. And Argo have this important part, from my perspective, Argo events, because Argo can wait for the network configuration to be applied. This is not something out of the box on Flux. So if you have a complex networking, you can set up your deployment in several waves, and each wave will wait for something external to happen. So when event arrives that you have a gateway ready on premises, because a lot of companies have hybrid setups, when you're receiving the gateway event with Argo events, then deployment will start. Argo CD have quite a good tool called Autopilot. It's essentially automatic configuration for your deployment, and most of the deployments starting with it. So if you want to learn GitOps and etc., and you are a developer, it's important part, because DevOps engineers, they preferring Flux, because it's command line, it's hardcore, and it's within their existing knowledge. And there is also Enterprise Argo, and there is an interesting part. It's Flamingo UI to manage Flux from Argo interface. So I've seen two setups like this, unfortunately, when one company buying another one. So one company have Argo CD, another company have Flux and command line. And company one wants to take control over Flux and understand what's happening with deployments. So there is a Flamingo, and you can use it. Actually, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, and we can do it interactively. OK. Argo CD components. So there is a Kubernetes dashboard. Argo essentially working with Helm charts or YAML manifests, but all the Helm is converted to YAML before applying to the cluster. You can set up bidirectional sync. So there is not only GitOps way, like you pull in from the Git. If you understand that you have a changes applied to your cluster by some third party, or you need to have integration with third-party tooling, you can get sync from the Argo to your Git and automatic pull requests. And this also applies to the container patching and tool like Modernize. As I mentioned, a lot of QR codes on each and every page, so you can easily follow up needed part. And most of the QR codes leading you to the GitHub repositories of the particular tools. So, and Argo solves for you quite important thing. It's application of application pattern or application sets. So as I mentioned, if you have like a small to medium company, there is no point to complicate some kind of a waves deployment or set up any dependencies. It's just a simple pull and simple apply of the configuration for your application and cluster. But if you have this fancy fancy UI, a lot of mini UIs, a lot of backend services, and they need to work together, and you need to apply everything with particular flow. You can set up this your applications even with external apps. You can set up a big integration, so they will be deployed together always. This is how Argo CD works. This is kind of it's a bit heavy to comprehend, so it's also for the homework and double checking. But essentially, you as a developer doing two pull requests. A first pull request, it's your code changes. Another pull request to the infrastructure Git with configuration with Kubernetes configuration for your application. And infrastructure team reviews pull requests to the infrastructure Git, and your own team reviews changes to the application, and then at CI you get in the new container in your container registry. And only after infrastructure team approves the Git changes and Argo CD finds the proper container in registry, your changes gets applied. And then it's starting a lot of back and forth and an analysis of what's changed and what's not. And also Argo CD constantly monitoring state of your cluster, and it's if it's different between configuration of the cluster and your Git repository, Argo CD can try to auto-heal this, auto-apply changes from the Git. But it's kind of it's very fun that some of the companies not using this, in fact, because this can break changes, and they never sure that the DevOps engineer do not apply any manual changes. So this auto reconciliation usually working in only small companies with 2 or 3 teams that is working with the same clusters. If it's a bigger team, there is no, if it's like big setup, like 10 teams working with a lot of services and etc., usually auto reconciliation is turned off. It's my observation. Maybe it's not true for you, but my observation after several projects, it's people doing like this. So, benefits of Argo. It's a great developer experience because actually you don't need to learn any underlying tools. You can just easy to start and easy to understand what is going on with your deployments because of the UI. It have a quite good ecosystem, internal ecosystem from the Argo developers, and it have a lot of policies for applying your changes. So you can set up quite complicated scenarios. So with Flux, you can do this also, but it's in Argo, you can set up everything from the UI initially, then save it as a configuration, experiment with these changes, and save it as a configuration for later automation. And you have user rights and so on and so forth. But there is also challenges. I really like term problems, but it's not recommended for conferences to say that some tools have problems, or anyone have problems, in fact. So a lot of people still doing UI ops with Argo. So you deployed Argo, experimented with this, with it, and then you continue to clicking through the interface, unfortunately, because it should be a GitOps, everything automated, and you should write Argo configuration as Terraform, but with small startups and small companies, traditions are super strong. So they continue clicking in the portal. They have GitOps, but they clicking still. And you have a master cluster with Argo. So if your cluster went down, all your fancy GitOps dies with this cluster. So if it's some kind of misconfiguration or network and you have a distributed sets, everything will be dead. So also manual overrides from the UI. I have one funny situation. It was some incident in production. Then people disabled automatic sync. And then they forgot to enable it. And then everything happens. So no one will look into the Argo configuration through the command line. So people complain that nothing works and it's issues with deployment, and people start doing manual changes. And then in 1 month, when finally people find that automatic sync is turn it off, no one can fix the configuration drift anymore. So they started the configuration from scratch. Because of a lot of manual changes on the Kubernetes, they have a new custom CRDs and etc. And Argo was not able to sync this out. And Argo states that not all resources can be handled by just Kubernetes configuration. So this is why they have a Terraform. And the preferred way to set up your Argo first time is to actually apply it to the Terraform controller that Argo provides. And you periodically need to run shell commands. There is no way out. Okay, a bit of a demo. I pre-recorded it because DevOps demos is like AI demos. You can get Wi-Fi issue and etc., and you will be sitting here enjoying spinners for half an hour. So it's a video without sound, so I will be explaining what's going on. So I done some like a simple demo of the Argo. And if I will find my mouse, because it's okay, this is my mouse, very good. So it's just applying Argo CD to the empty Kubernetes cluster on Azure. And it's a typical demo from the Argo CD with UI guestbook application and service. It's just a YAML manifest, no Helm charts here for ease of use. And if you will use kubectl command with port forwarding, you can have Argo from your cluster visible on your machine. But this is all fun until we apply some changes. I actually tried to break this up. I will spare you from the command execution and etc. So here is I'm applied the configuration. And soon demo application will start working, will start be visible in UI. So we have a demo application. It's now out of sync because it's only a pointer to the Git applied. Now I click in sync. It's a lot of configuration here, and I will stop for a second. So GitOps is easy, Argo is easy, until you need to kind of figure out what this all means. And there is opportunity to do the dry run and forcefully delete something, and oh, sorry, I will do it like this and fix this issue. So it's all good and fancy only until the moment when you need to solve problems. And so you, besides that, everyone states that Argo CD is easy. You need to really understand all these checkboxes at least to have a successful synchronization. So you have a lot of issues. You have you can force to remove resources on Kubernetes. You can force retries. You can force replace all the resources from Git. You can do it's an interesting option, apply out of sync, because when this synchronization by default happening with Argo, it's checking all the resources. Entire resource graph in the Kubernetes, entire resource graph that in the state inside Git. And if you have a complex application, this sync can be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even half an hour if it's a complex waves. So you need to really figure out a lot of issues, opportunities with configurations. Sorry, I will fix this again and hit the play. So it will be super fast demo. Okay. First issue that I have, it's a wrong namespace. It's a name. It's a namespace bookup 2, but it should be just bookup. Bookup was used, and I need to deploy this to the bookup 2. Now I will hit sync, and just a synchronize command will execute successfully. Now I'm getting my services deployed, and everything looks good. And now I will try to experiment with breaking Argo configuration. It's quite easy, actually. From the UI, you can break all the syncs and configurations, so you will need to force replace all the changes. And it's just a UI, and this UI really gives you a lot of good observability. Because if you're starting with Flux, you need to output commands from the shell, like in the initial part of this demo. So you need to read through the command line outputs. And what you can do with any resource is just a Kubernetes manifest. You can edit resources of your Kubernetes right in the Argo. Quite cool for GitOps, because GitOps it's about automation and not a ClickOps. But you can do ClickOps in the Argo. And what I will try to do now is to change the namespace. Argo Smart. It doesn't allow me to change a namespace for this deployment. But now I will just change ingress ports, so my application will be broken. And Argo allows me to do this now. And after you can view comparison changes, even like a Git style here. And I will click apply soon. Yes, it's desired state manifest they have here. And now I click in sync, and now it's out of sync because my Git have port 80. And if I will start clicking automatic synchronization again and again, it will not synchronize anymore. So here is the configuration drift issue. So I'm changing something on the Kubernetes. You have a state inside the Git, and with simple configuration that you have a default Argo CD deployment, it will not be automatically solved. Now I'm just, for the sake of the demo, just hitting replace, and it will forcefully apply the Git changes. Even it can even delete my resources. And so Git changes applied, and etc. So it's super easy to break things even with automated tooling. And because you have UI, and a lot of it's usually this UI is available for many users, and users starting with UI, but then you need to remove access from users from the UI of Argo CD, or implement role-based access, because otherwise people will continue clicking and there will be a lot of manual changes. But moving forward, Flux. Actually, Flux was like term GitOps was invented by Flux creators. It was a first marketing term, and then it becomes something like we need to know, everyone needs to know. The fun thing is that creators of the Flux, the company Weaveworks, it's already dead. So there is no such company. And it was a lot of questions last year, like what will happen with Flux, and will there will be any updates and etc. But actually, developers from Weaveworks was rehired, and they now working at company called Control Plane, and they implemented Argo-like interface for the Flux. So now you can start with the Control Plane UI for the Flux and have most of the benefits that you have with Argo, like observability, configuration, etc. It was not the case a year ago because there were some UIs like capacitor from Gimlet and etc. But they was not on par with what you're getting with Argo CD by default. You also have Pulumi operator. Anyone using Pulumi? Awesome, congratulations. It's really good. I really like Pulumi and C#, and it's super cool. But now C# is available also with Terraform, so it's, yeah, it's now a bit more competitive. But yeah, Flux is more like open source tool, and this is the reason it's very lightweight, and it's a part of different developer platforms now. So if you're using Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, they have a by default UI for the Flux and default setup of the Flux. So you can get this GitOps on Azure Kubernetes out of the box. You also get in Flux with Azure Arc. So if you have a Kubernetes on-premise, it will also be Flux. If you're using something like a platform engineering or platforms, they're very exotic stuff, VMware Tanzu, but it's actually a quite good platform. It have a lot of moving internals and GitOps functionality provided by Flux and GitLab. Actually using Flux as a backbone for everything regarding deployments. And actually, if you're interested in this topic, you can read GitLab reasoning of choosing between Argo and Flux. But usually big companies investing in something much more linear and not that complex. Okay, Flux CD components. So Flux is really small. There is no CI functionality. There is no events. There is nothing. It's just a responsibility for continuous deployment. And it have just a set of Kubernetes controllers for sending notification, for applying your Helm charts to the Kubernetes, to pull your sources. It's on the right side, invisible here. And the last but most important component, it's image reflector and automation controller. So you can have everything with policies and etc. And just a step out of the tooling, as I mentioned, it's like a Kubernetes rabbit hole of different tools, and customize is used by both Argo and Flux. It's essentially just a templating engines for the YAML files. So you have like a main YAML file, and depending on the environment, different parts of this YAML file would be replaced. And so if you need to generate some templates for deployment for different environments, Customize have command line, and it's super easy to do. And it's part of all the GitOps tooling, actually. So it's like it's just honorable mention, and you can have a look through the QR code later on. Okay, it's a sample flow from the Azure documentation with Flux that is part of the default deployment, that can be a part of default deployment. And the only fun thing that it's a reference architecture and etc. And then you see the new name Mozilla SOPs, Mozilla Security Operations. And as I mentioned, it's a rabbit hole. You cannot go with only Flux or Argo CD. You will be onboarding more and more tools and learning more and more things, and things will get complex. But all these tools will look good on your CV, on your LinkedIn, and people will hire you, and you will get more money for the next job if you will figure out this. So this is all good. Complexity is good for us developers and operations engineers, because the more complexity, there is a less chance that ChatGPT will replace us, because it will be so convoluted that no one, even ChatGPT, cannot figure out this stuff. So benefits of Flux. Modular tool with only continuous deployment responsibility, very lightweight, almost no external dependencies, and it solves the main problem really good. And it have maintainers that were fired from the original company, but rehired by another company. So business still making money with the Flux, and adopting Flux, if you like command interface and etc., it's really a good thing. And yeah, I didn't mention, but image updater. So if you need to automatically patch containers, it's not always working from my perspective. It's my perspective. I'm telling this again. In my perspective, on Argo CD, you can have some issues with container patching, but on Flux, it's more reliable and more stable. My observation. It's not a general term. It's important because this video is recorded and I'm sending waves to the online viewers. So challenges. Some people like to delete deployments. If they experiment a lot and a lot of failures, and through the day you can have like 200 failed deployments, 300 failed deployments, and you can delete them from the Flux. And if you have some custom Grafana dashboard to surface these deployments, it will be polluting everything that you have. Observability, as I mentioned, it's an extra step. You need to figure this out. And it's always this reconciliation loop that is checking constantly resources across your Git repository and deployed Kubernetes configuration, and it's event-based. And this can be good and this can be bad, because it's a lot of events will happen over time. So if you have a quite complex configuration and a lot of clusters, your master cluster with Flux would have a lot of ingress and a lot of traffic because of these events, because of this constant polling. And this is something that is kind of hard to set up on the Flux. It's easier to set up this on the Argo. Advanced Helm charts, it's problem for both Argo CD and Flux, actually. But I need to mention something bad about Flux, so I added this issue here. And external tooling needed for Flux, but now we have a bright new and shiny Flux UI from control plane, and you can use it. Oh, just one point here. On the right side and on the QR code, it's a reference to the issues. And the same reference for the issues on the GitHub is for the Argo. And comparison of the issues for Flux, it's around maybe 300 now. For Argo, it's about 3,000. What does it say to you? Is it good, bad? With Argo, 3,000 issues open now because of a lot of people using it, and a lot of people are just starting using it. So it's like they're just adopting, and so this broken, we need to do our case with Argo because we don't know anything else, and we're using only UI. With Flux, Flux is used mostly by DevOps engineers and operations, not developers. And so they just automating solving some their internal issues. So they not complaining, they implementing fixes by themselves, essentially for Flux. And so like Argo is used mostly for small and medium companies, and they go in with issues to the GitHub issues tab and like, this is not working, please fix it for us. But with Flux, a lot of people just doing the pull request to fix the issue in Flux and not even creating anything. Like they created issue and pull request to fix it right away. So this is the fun part, because it's like a more powerful community. I don't know, more principal engineers working with Flux. Let's say so. So it's less issues and it might be helpful. Comparison. So if you're a developer, go with Argo CD. And you don't know like any basic knowledge about GitOps and all the tooling that you need to install with Flux, just go with Argo and you will save a lot of time and learn as you go. And like in 1 year, you can add GitOps and Argo to your LinkedIn and get a new job and forget about adoption curve. Argo has a centralized architecture, which is kind of good, and a lot of additional tools installed with Argo. So they have a role-based control access. You have admin panel in Argo. You can set up access levels for the users. It's good because it has this observability and visualization of your complex deployment. So if you have a really complex deployment and need to solve this fast, I would go with Argo and learn everything as you play. But with Flux, Flux have a quite good SDK. So if you need to fix something or you're missing functionality for the CD only, you can implement this by yourself. No problem. And this is the way most people doing this. Another problem is single responsibility. So you might want to have a CI also, like with Argo CD, or you can have CI in different places, but what's usually happening after initial adoption of Argo CD, yes, you have a Tecton, you have Azure DevOps, you have a lot of tooling, but people tend to live with one ecosystem. You cannot do this with Flux. There is a Flux Enterprise from Acuity company, but it's Flux Enterprise, and you will need to pay money for the support and all the fancy stuff. So you need to learn a command line, and yeah. My opinion is Flux is perfect if you're building some like platform engineering in your company. It will be just a CD component, and you know what you're doing because Flux doing CD really good, like really good, really stable. It's like it was first on the market, and it's still backbone of a lot of different applications, and it's easy to work in command line and not in the UI. So this is the user voice on Reddit. I put this on purpose. So usually votes go in something like this. And what would you choose? Argo CD? Any vote? Okay. Flux, hardcore, and command line. Okay, about the same. It's complicated. Okay, but on the Reddit or public forums where a lot of, let's say, middle developers spending their time, they are keen to start learning with UI and then go hardcore with command line. How to choose Flux or Argo CD? I made this chart. So one of the most funny line is down below. It's usually like this in real projects. So if there are DevOps engineers and they scale in operations, if they do not care about developers like at all, they don't give anything. Do you care about developers? No. Then this will be a Flux deployment in the company. If they care about developers, they will talk with them. And if developers need to learn about infrastructure, they will choose Argo, probably, because Argo have a command line also, and you can work with command line, with hardcore, and etc. And there is a lot of other questions like, do you have a developer platform? How many teams you have? How many applications, and etc. So this chart is available in talk PDF, and yeah. Moving to the GitSecOps. Anyone? Yeah. With partial delegation, yeah. So what is the partial delegation here? Partial delegation is when team writing their own infrastructure. So I usually see two extremes. First extreme is infrastructure guy saying, just build your container with our specification and leave everything to us, because you are just incompetent developers. They don't know anything about Kubernetes and how real software working. You just need to like build your code and make sure that port 80 or 443 is working inside container, and this is it, and go away. In big companies like, I don't know, Coca-Cola, for example, and etc., it will be like this. So you as developer will never have access to anything in infrastructure. But in small and middle companies or kind of siloed companies, you are not only responsible for your code in container, you are responsible for infrastructure in Kubernetes, where container will be running, for configuration of ports, for how much memory, for open ports, and so on and so forth. And you should test this configuration and make sure that your code will work with this, because this is like two sides of the story. And when you're on the side of the story, when you're a developer and cannot decide anything and do not have even understanding of your memory footprint of your application, and you're not testing this for the like smoke testing, high load, and etc., you just don't know. And this is really bad. And so it's a partial delegation. It's when you as developer need to understand what kind of resources you need and how to make sure that this will happen. GitOps. It's another fancy word, but if we would just abstract from this, it's automatic security scanning and the CI step, and dynamic security testing at the continuous deployment. So essentially, if you're working with Visual Studio, you have some static analyzers, but you can also have some tool as part of the rebuild process that will scan your code for the vulnerabilities. The default tool that is most of the providers like GitHub and Azure DevOps using now, it's Sneak, that will test your containers for the known vulnerabilities and CVEs. So it's something like this. But you need to know that with GitOps, you will probably need to adopt some extra tooling for Kubernetes. And it will be this probably DAST, DAST, Dynamic Security Testing. But this is tooling that you need to have, and this is, call it fancy word, GitSecOps. So if you want a GitSecOps on your LinkedIn, just look into the configuration of two tools, learn what does this word mean, and run this tool a few times on your test Kubernetes cluster, and just add it, and then you will work with some real tools in the real production later on when you switch jobs. And Mozilla SOAP, secrets of operation, and Bitnami sealed secrets, it's all in the QRs. It's essentially tools to encrypt your secrets. And because when you're doing GitOps, you need to have secrets somewhere, and it's in the key vaults, and it can be in different key vaults in different regions, and you need to make sure that your secrets is properly encrypted and can be decrypted when your software is deployed. This is the problem. So it needs to be decrypted automatically, and this will not take several hours with the latency calls and etc. So you can, if you're using any tools like Mozilla SOAPs and Bitnami, and also have SAST and DAST tools, you now GitSecOps engineer. Congratulations. But make sure to add this to your LinkedIn and have a look into the tooling. And on the screen, it's actually Azure Defender that is actually doing DAST testing, DAST testing for you. So if you're using Azure Defender, that is testing your deployments and infrastructure, it's actually your GitSecOps engineer. And if you can set up it, you can add it. Yeah, it's fun, but it's kind of true. It's true story. But there is a more powerful tools, obviously. And this is about Argo CD, QR code for this quite good article. So until like 1 year ago, Argo CD installation, default installation went with it's a bit too small, but I will explain. So Redis database was passwordless. So when you deploy an Argo CD to a Kubernetes cluster, you're getting passwordless Redis. It can be easily taken over by some other tool with vulnerability. And then because attacker have access to your Argo CD instance, he can deploy anything everywhere. And this is the reason why I mentioned this rabbit hole. So it's a lot of tooling working together, and you don't know where vulnerability is until someone exploited it or tested for it. This was the testing by this company Cycode, and they written a good article. And after this, Argo patched this issue, but there can be tons of issues in different small components. So when you go in with the Flux, you're making sure that there is like no external components, and then you patching only Flux. But if you're going with Argo, security for Argo can be patched for the like Argo CD, but it can be security issue with other components that Argo referencing. So be careful and choose wisely. So this is the Argo CD hardening, just for reference. As I said, it's a lot of content in this talk and a lot of QR codes for the follow-ups, but default deployment of Argo CD and default configuration is not enough. And unfortunately, a lot of things enabled by default, so you should follow like a good recommendation and good recommendations. And I provided the links for this recommendation. And on the right side, Argo have actually like a default recommendations and issues list about vulnerabilities. And it's always ongoing open vulnerabilities for a lot of components and tools. And this is what I mentioned, that if you're adopting any open source tools or a free tool or any paid tool, in fact, you need to constantly monitor it with some kind of a GitSecOps automated tooling for vulnerabilities and patching. And at least know GitHub issues page and security issues page of the product, because you will not be notified about ongoing incidents and issues in automatic way, because it's not really good for business. I don't know. But if you open some Apple developer forums, there will be a lot of security issues that is not patched for years. So it's not something unique to the GitOps or tooling in open source. And moving to summary. So the goal of GitOps is to solve all this mess with a lot of manual scripts, manual commands, and manual adjustments to the different clusters and environment, and make them quite unified. It's a good way of letting developers to know about abstractions of Kubernetes and configure their own services with control from the operations teams. So it's not implemented everywhere, but it will be really good if your developers will be doing some operations work. Your applications, and especially if you build in a product, it will work just better. It's for the moment it's only way to solve complex distributed apps delivery if you don't have a developer platform, so call it platform engineering, but GitOps is part of the platform engineering and part of the big platforms built by customers or by external vendors. Flux, it's usually, if it's a GitOps and it's a platform engineering, it's Flux, because it's only CD. You sure that you don't need any CI, any external dependencies, any databases and etc., any UIs, and you can do this by yourself and can maintain this by yourself. Then it's Flux, obviously. And my take that platform engineering or this internal developer platform, when you have like a wizard flow to create a Git repositories, deployment pipelines, and etc., in automated way, will hide everything away from you. So essentially, platform engineering is like a serverless for developers now, and everything moving that way, that you have like just a UI with 5 clicks. I need repository for Node.js, Node.js web service, and this is it. You will have all the pool approach and all the fancy stuff. And but platform engineering is good only for from my perspective. It's always my perspective. It's not true. It's my perspective. So from my perspective, platform engineering is only for the huge tech companies, not enterprise companies. And so having Argo CD or Flux on your CV, on your LinkedIn, it's really useful. And I would say it's super easy to do a self-education course with 2 weekends to deploy both Flux and both Argo CD. Try to pull any Git repository, maybe from Flux, maybe from your own code, see how container builds, see the CI, and connect CI and CD and see how changes applied. Try the policies to fix configuration drift, and then you will have more money and more opportunities. And so thank you very much for visiting this talk. So if you have a provocative question, you can answer. You can ask it without the camera because it's for internet, and maybe it will be some kind of issues with recording. But not provocative, but serious questions. I'm ready to ask. Ready to ask them. No? Okay. So it's one requirement if you want to implement GitOps. You need to vote for quality of the stock on the exit or in the some application. I'm not sure how. So this is the requirement. If you want more money and if you want more opportunities in your work life, please vote for the stock. And thank you. And I'm giving you back 5 minutes.